Did you know being a planner person could actually be a sign of high functioning anxiety? And admit it, you stopped listening after the words high functioning. Excessive planning is one way that people with high functioning anxiety try to keep the chaos at bay. But how do you know if you actually suffer from high functioning anxiety, and what is it, and what can you do about it if you do have it? That's what we'll be talking about in this video today. So first of all, let me get this out of the way. I'm neither a doctor, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or any kind of licensed therapist. So this is my personal opinion and the information that I've done by researching this for myself. So if you think some of these symptoms could relate to you or sound kind of like you, then I would encourage you to do some research yourself and maybe seek out the help of a therapist if it's something that bothers you in your day-to-day life. So it's important to understand too that high functioning anxiety is actually not a mental health diagnosis. It's not an anxiety disorder, because people who have high functioning anxiety are still able to function in their day-to-day life. On the contrary, we tend to be high achievers. We tend to propel ourselves through this anxiety in order to calm the anxiety. So on the outside, it could look like you have your life completely together and everyone thinks that everything is so easy for you. You're so organized. But on the inside, you're suffering from crippling anxiety. And because of this, because we do try to keep it hidden, there's often a lack of understanding in our environment and quite often a lack of a support structure to help us get through it. Finding out that there's even a name for this internal struggle I've had my whole life has been very freeing. I've been this way my whole life. I'm a chronic overachiever. I'm deathly afraid of failing. I won't start something if I'm not sure that I can excel at it. And it's been really hard for me my whole life to show that I do struggle with things or that it's hard for me to achieve some things. Anyone who knows me thinks that things just fly into my lap, that if I put my mind to it, I can do anything and do it excellently. But on the contrary, on the inside of me, I'm always anxious. I'm always worried about failing. I'm always trying to be someone that others can look up to, no matter how detrimental it is to my well-being. And aside from having the anxiety, I struggle with a lot of executive functioning. So I don't have a diagnosis of ADHD, but I think I kind of fall somewhere in the spectrum. I have a lot of difficulty with timekeeping skills, organizational management, with details, and I'm actually, in my life, you would think I'm actually extremely good at these things, but they take a lot of energy from me, and they take a lot of worrying, and they take a lot of staying on top of everything, and they take a lot of over-reliance on external tools to get me to that position. So, for example, over-reliance on my planner. So I think this is something that doesn't get talked about a lot in the planner community, but excessive planning is actually one of the main symptoms of having high-functioning anxiety. We have this over-reliance on planning tools, on to-do lists, on calendars that help us deal with the anxiety of losing control over life. And there's a lot of other symptoms and signs of having high-functioning anxiety, and I'll get to those a little bit later in the video. But as a general rule of thumb, people with high-functioning anxiety rely on their planners, rely on to-do lists, struggle with persistent and racing thoughts, rumination, insomnia because you can't sleep because you keep thinking of all of the things that you have to do, dwelling on thoughts, dwelling on situations. We often tend to be high achievers, detail-oriented, and perfectionistic, and very often it comes with an outgoing personality type. And really, we mask this anxiety out of a feeling of deep shame. We cannot let other people see that we actually really struggle with our day-to-day life. So on the surface, we look calm, collected, excelling at everything life throws at us, and internally we're extremely anxious and worried. So a lot of the time, this goes hand in hand with a low self-esteem, low self-worth, overthinking, and perfectionism, and we can also find making decisions really difficult. So let me get into what I consider the 8 main symptoms of high-functioning anxiety, and I'd be interested to know in the comments if you see this in yourself, and how much of the planner community are actually suffering from high functioning anxiety. Symptom number 1, you are an excessive planner. Like a lot of people in the planner community, I'm obsessed with planning, writing down all the details. I'm so worried that I'm going to miss a deadline or an important appointment or some important information, constantly referring back to my calendars. I use a digital calendar, I use my paper planner, just so I can feel in control of the situation. I'll even go back and write tasks that I've done that are not on my to-do list. And it's not just to have the little check mark and the feeling of, oh, I got something done today, but it's to have a protocol of it that I actually did do it. So when I'm referring back, I know that I did do it, and it's a relief to me that I don't have to think about it. It's on the paper, black and white, and I know I did it, so I can stop worrying about that. So when we go into situations, we know what to expect, we know how we're going to act, and we know what response will be expected of us. Which leads me to the second symptom, which is fear of failure or striving for perfection. I always try to remind myself perfection doesn't exist, but I do try to strive for excellence in the hope that striving for excellence gets me closer to perfection. But this intense fear of failure can lead to procrastination, which does for me very much, or finding it hard to get things started because you don't know where to start. What's the absolute right first step? This also can lead to absolutely avoiding situations where you don't feel you have control over the outcome, and this outcome could lead to failure or to not being perfect in something. So a lot of people with high functioning anxiety will actually avoid all situations where they aren't sure that they will have a positive outcome. Or it could stop you from changing your careers, although you would have the knowledge and the skills to actually excel in it. But if you're not 100% sure that you're going to excel in it, you may end up avoiding the situation altogether. And a third symptom of high functioning anxiety is doing a lot of research. So over-researching looks like reading all the reviews, researching all the information before you can make a decision. This stems from a feeling of perfectionism, of wanting to know all the information before you can actually move forward. This perfectionism and wanting to do things the right way can actually stop us from starting on projects. So doing all this research leads to analysis paralysis, a fear of starting for making a wrong step, and is an effort to prevent losing control over an unknown situation. And the fourth symptom is rigidity or a loss of flexibility in our scheduling and planning. High functioning anxiety tends to show up in mentally rehearsing outcomes, because once we've decided on a course of action, finally, we can kind of get stuck in the details of everything having to go exactly how we planned it. So when things don't go to how we planned them out or how we envisioned them to play out, this can really leave us feeling frustrated, irritated, or angry, and makes us look like control freaks. But it's actually a way for us to deal with our anxiety. It's really hard for people with high functioning anxiety to adjust on the fly to situations that kind of go sideways, or when things just don't go as we planned them to go and we kind of are losing our control over the situation. My motto has always been over prepare and then go with the flow. But if I'm honest with myself, the going with the flow part is kind of difficult. Being an excessive planner like I am, an excessive researcher, an obsessive to-do list person, when I'm over-prepared, I do feel that it's easier for me to relax in the situation because I've kind of taken care of all eventualities. So if things do go this way or do go that way, I'm kind of already prepared for it. So it allows me to look a little more flexible, but actually there's not much flexibility within that framework that I've built. So, and a fifth symptom is feeling judged and having a very harsh inner critic. And people with high functioning anxiety can really tend to beat themselves up when things don't go properly or how they envisioned them or they planned for them to go. We can tend to focus on the negative, and we're kind of blind to seeing what we're actually doing well. So we may look at all the points where we're not living up to our own high expectations and fail to see where we're outperforming everyone else. We tend to have a very low judgment of ourselves, and by focusing on the negative, that impacts obviously our self-judgment too, and we tend to project this judgment onto others. So what I mean by that is that we think others are seeing these negative points in ourselves, and that's all they see, and that they're judging us for that. They're judging our failure, and they're judging us that we're not good enough and not living up to our potential and what we should be doing. Very often we're trying to overanalyze other people, trying to interpret their comments, their behaviors towards us, and we very often have a negative connotation with that. The sixth symptom of high functioning anxiety is reassurance-seeking behavior and difficulty making decisions. It comes from a desire to find certainty in life, reassuring ourselves that we're doing the right thing. And it's also a way for us to try and reduce the overthinking that we can be prone to. Basically, we're looking for validation that we're making the right choice. It can help reduce the time we spend on researching things because outside validation gives us a little bit of credibility to say, okay, we can stop now because someone else also sees it like this, and we value their judgment more than our own judgment. Reliance on reassurance, though, can actually exacerbate the anxiety, especially when you're getting mixed feedback or mixed signals from the people. That can tend to lead to overthinking again, and then going back into the research and leading again to analysis paralysis, and we're not getting started on anything. Reassurance seeking is actually very frustrating in the long run, and looking for external reassurance stops us from looking inwards and stops us from learning to trust ourselves and our own judgments. A seventh symptom of high functioning anxiety are nervous habits. So tapping your fingers, tapping your feet, your toes, picking at skin. These nervous habits are a way for us to release this pent-up anxiety, the energy that's in our body. It has to come out. We kind of tend to repress these emotions. It's actually an external display of your internal world. And then moving on from that, symptom 8 is worrying too much and repressing our emotions. So like within the other symptoms, high functioning anxiety can make you overthink, be overly critical, and have you feeling constantly overwhelmed with your life. And we try to repress these feelings because not only are they uncomfortable, but they make you feel weak in front of others. This in turn can lead to people pleasing and having a tendency to not take care of yourself and your own needs. So oftentimes people with high functioning anxiety are prioritizing other people and other people's needs over their own, which can lead to a feeling of never feeling like you can relax, never feeling supported, and being overwhelmed by the feeling that if you aren't diligent enough, the whole world's going to fall apart. And really, the adrenaline surge of the anxiety is kind of a coping mechanism for us to cover up or repress the emotions that we aren't willing to feel because they're uncomfortable. So now that you know a lot of the signs and symptoms, so now what? Some of you may already know that I lost my only child to a motorcycle accident a few years ago. For me, in my life, dealing with this grief really exacerbated the anxiety. So I've always been highly anxious. I've always had these feelings of overwhelm, and part of my anxiety, I have a shaky concept of self. And when I lost my son, I went from being a mother who, as an overachiever and highly proactive, put all my energy and time into being a mother, into suddenly coming to terms with not having a child anymore. So from 150 to 0% mother. And this took away my core self-concept. That was my mission in life, to be the best mother that I could be. So from one second to the next, I lost this mission. And aside from the obvious grief that you go through when you lose a child, I was also struggling with defining who I am now. So struggling with the concept of, if I'm not fulfilling this role, am I even worthy of love and respect and care from anyone else? I'm still struggling with this issue, and it's the big reason that I've decided to actually start my YouTube channel up again, kind of to hold me accountable in my growth and moving forward from this loss and going through this grief, and in doing so, trying to figure out who I am again and starting to live my life again so that we can actually move forward. Whew. So there are some key concepts that are supposed to help, and these are what I will be integrating into this new journey that I'm on. The first thing to do, if you see yourself reflected in these symptoms, is to ask for help. And I think that's the hardest thing for us to do. You are worthy of help just like anyone else. It doesn't make you less of a person. And this help can come in many different forms. You can get professional help and find a therapist if you're able to, but it doesn't have to be professional help. It can also be letting your best friend know how it actually feels to be you, how it actually feels to live your life, because we tend not to let people in. People don't know this about us. They don't know we're struggling with these things and that we're constantly overwhelmed. It's really hard for them to have empathy with us because we try and make everything look as easy as possible and don't have boundaries set, and we take on everything, and people are always amazed at how much we can do. So the support structure may not be there for you right now, and asking for help is a great first step in creating this structure that can be very helpful to you. And then for me, mindfulness is where I'm starting, and I'll get into that in a video next week. I have something exciting coming up, but I'm going on a mindfulness journey. And what do I mean with mindfulness? I mean being present in the moment. So because we tend to overthink, over-research, get really into the future planning and thinking of all the eventualities, we really struggle to be alive in the moment, with being able to take a deep breath and relax. And I think for me, a lot of this will come down to meditating, because there's a lot of science on how these two activities work to shut down anxious responses in the brain. I won't get into that here, but there's a lot of research out there if it's something that you're interested in. And thirdly, I'm going to try and stop the negative self-talk. So obviously this is not going to be the easiest part, and I'm trying to become aware when I'm speaking negatively to myself and being conscious of not replacing that with more negativity. Noticing myself speaking negatively to myself and not replacing that with the thought of, see, you're talking negative to yourself again. You never talk positive to yourself. So what I'm trying to incorporate, what I'm trying to be aware of, if I wouldn't say that to my best girlfriend, why would I say it to myself? I'll also be actively considering where my boundaries are and how I plan on enforcing these boundaries. This is going to take some real soul searching. I'll be honest, I have no idea where my boundaries are. And I do feel responsible for the well-being of basically everyone in my life. And this can't continue going forward. I'll be journaling about this and actually trying to figure out what boundaries are really important to me, and where these boundaries are, and what consequences will have to be put into place for not respecting these boundaries. So like I said in the beginning, I think this is an issue that actually really affects a lot of us in the planner community. And if you're comfortable with it, let me know in the comments below if you think you struggle with this, and maybe you have struggled with it in the past and you've figured out coping strategies and you lead a much more calm life. I would love to hear that too. And maybe stay tuned for next week, because I have a video coming up with a 30-day challenge. Perhaps you'd like to go on this challenge with me. And if you would, maybe you'd consider subscribing and clicking the like button so that you get notified when I put that video out, which will be next week. And if you're still with me, I really appreciate you watching the whole video. It was a little bit emotional at times for me, but I really appreciate you staying with me this long and watching the video. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.